Okay. Okay. It is set. The NBA Finals is coming to or not the finals. The NBA playoffs is coming to a conclusion. We do have our finals matchup. The Dallas Mavericks, 5 seed Dallas Mavericks, going up against the number 1 seed in the East, Boston Celtics. I haven't done a few instant reactions in a couple of games. Couple reasons why. One, had the episode drop Sunday. I was out of town. I wanted to let that episode breathe a little bit with Emily Applegate. Again, if you don't know who she is, she was the face of that, the face of the kind of stuff with the old Washington Redskins owner, with the toxic workplace stuff. She was the one that actually came out, put her face to it, was on doing the whole press run and stuff. Saw a colleague of mine, acquaintance of mine, I'll say, friend of the show. She had been on the show when it was the Bottom Line. Go check that out when we talked about Harrison Bucker. And then I was out of town in Richmond helping a friend move, and so I didn't have my stuff with me. And then of course Boston closed it out while I was out of town Sunday night, and then Monday Dallas lost, or Monday night, whatever it was. Dallas lost game 4. So I do want to take a quick second and just provide a little bit of congratulations to the Indiana Pacers for a great season. They were the 6th seed. They probably were not supposed to be here. Very similar to the way the Atlanta Hawks were not supposed to be in the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago when they beat Philly that year. That was the year that kind of completely changed the trajectory of Ben Simmons' career. So it felt like that, but they're young. They had some injuries. They made some trades, so they lost a lot of backcourt depth. But I liked what they showed. I liked the fight, and I liked that even though they got swept, it didn't feel like a sweep. It reminded me a lot of that Lakers Nuggets. I'm going to mention that a lot of stuff reminded me of other stuff, because there were a lot of stuff that we saw in these playoffs, specifically in the most recent round, that had reminded me of other stuff. And so that Pacers and Celtics series and results reminded me of Nuggets Lakers last year, as did honestly the first 3 games of Timberwolves Mavs reminded me of Nuggets and Lakers. But anyway, congratulations to the Pacers. Interesting to see what they do next, what's next for them. Congratulations to Boston for winning the Eastern Conference Finals. And look, there's a lot of discussion about, but people who are trying to find any way to discredit want to say, hey, well, it was the easiest path ever. They got to play the Heat in round 1, and then Jimmy Butler missed. I guess after game 1 he didn't play. Then they got to play the Cavs, and then Donovan Mitchell missed the last couple games or something like that, so he didn't play. And then they got to play. Then they had to avoid the Knicks, who were banged up anyway, and got to play the Pacers. And but they can't control who's in front of them. And one thing we always say that we love about the NBA is that the 7-game series, make sure it's the best team that wins, right? So if the 7-game series is the best way to determine who the best team is, because the best team's going to win, then they're playing the best team available in front of them. If you put it that way, but they can't control who they play in front of them. And I do think that you do deserve credit for doing what you're supposed to do. You should not be going 7 games, 6 games with the Pacers if you're Boston, or with the Cavs if you're Boston. It's hard to sweep. So you giving up 1 because the Heat broke a record from 3 in game 2 because the Cavs shot ridiculous. Like, you giving up 1 because of that, not tripping. But you went 12-2. You're 12-2 in the playoffs so far. Oh, voice crack. You're 12-2 in the playoffs so far. Congratulations to Boston. And then we'll flip it over to the other side. Minnesota, maybe they were a little bit, they were here premature. Obviously, the Anthony Edwards talk and conversation was a little bit premature. I mentioned that in one of the other ones. It's not that he's not great. It's not that he's not going to be great. But we got to slow down, right? All the Michael Jordan stuff, all the, we can say he's got the killer mentality, so be it. But, like, hey, he won the second-round series, and I guess that says a lot to our respect for the Denver Nuggets, in just the sense that him beating the Nuggets, awarded him all of this, whatever, like, and we were just like, oh, and like we just completely forgot that Luka Doncic is the best player and was the best player in the series and is still a top 4 player in the world. Probably because we had just, we're always looking for the new thing. And when it was Ja, we were all on Ja Morant. When it was Zion and Ja, then, now it's Ant. And then it'll be whoever it is next, Chet and Wemby. Like, we're always looking for the next thing, especially if someone has a deep playoff run. But look, Kevin Garnett made a really good point I thought was interesting. He talked about, I don't remember exactly where it was, but he talked about how Michael Jordan used to like go and play pickup with the guys after the season, and he would play with them until June. He said play until or July 1st because the playoffs ends in June, and you're training your body to play all the way until the end of June because when the playoffs come, if you're in the playoffs, you have to, you will wear down. This is what he was saying. You'll wear down because your body is not used to going this hard still at this point in the year. But if you, every offseason, you don't stop playing and take your rest, your vacation until after June, until the playoffs end, you help prepare your body for when that time comes. And I think that that's interesting. You've got some young guys and Derek Lively and whatnot, but Luka's been to a Western Conference Finals. Kyrie's been to a few finals. And that's, of course, who they rode. And you got Minnesota, who this Western Conference Finals, outside of Mike Conley, I'm not sure, and I guess Rudy Gobert, I'm not sure how many of them have been this far. And so I wonder if if Kevin Garnett's point was valid, right? Like maybe there's something to that. I liked what I saw at a Cat tonight. We'll do a little bit of an instant reaction to this last game. This last game reminded me of that Phoenix Dallas from a couple years ago. Final game where it was just kind of a blowout. Kevin, my boy Kevin actually texted me, said, 27 points. He was talking about halftime. He's like, I'm watching Netflix at halftime. Like I'm not, because it was just kind of disappointing. But I liked how Cat played tonight. I liked the aggression. I liked that he's like, yo, I'm attacking somebody's chest. He had 28 points, 12 boards. And if you just look at the stats, you're like, oh, that's a great game. But like I liked the aggression. And I wish he'd have done that more. But you got 26 minutes out of Rudy Gobert. I do know it was a blowout. So I understand like the last 8 minutes, 10 minutes, he's not playing. You got 21 minutes out of Jaden McDaniels. He had 5 fouls. You got 7 points, 21 minutes out of Mike Conley. Kyle Anderson played 33 minutes. Naz Reid played 27. So clearly your lineup was Ant, Cat, Anderson, Naz Reid, and then you were doing Gobert or McDaniels or Conley, and you were clearly rotating it in that way because Ant played 43 minutes and Cat played 38. So clearly being blown out is not why these guys didn't play. You just felt that you needed to go a different route. And I mean, to be quite honest with you, man, like I said, Cat played well, and I like that. Ant, he kind of got a lot of buckets when Dallas is already up 20 points. But he had 28, 9, and 6. Like, you can't 4 for 6 from 3, 10 for 18 from the field. Remember game 1 where he shot 15 shots and 12 of them were threes or something like that? 17 shots, 12 of them were threes. This, he shot 18 shots, only 6 of them were threes. They were all good threes because he went 4 for 6. And I understand it was a blowout, and a lot of the threes were coming, like, I think he had like 3 in a row at one point, but they were all just kind of drop coverage and just coming off the screen. They're not, not playing as aggressive defense, but that's what you like to see. 18 shots, 6 for threes, and you went 4 for 6 or 3 for 6 or even 2 for 6. I think that Dallas was kind of just in a different rhythm, and it was early. So remember earlier in the playoffs, Kyrie wasn't scoring in the first half. He was scoring in the second. Or then Kyrie would score, I think earlier in this series, Kyrie had 24 in the first half, and then Luka turned it on. I think that part of what's key to Dallas, honestly, when Luka gets going, when he gets in that bag, when he starts to really like start cooking, I think what it ends up happening is that's opens stuff up even more than it already does because he's a threat. And today, him and Kyrie were just phenomenal tonight. They were in a completely different kind of rhythm. And again, you're getting Jaden McDaniels in foul trouble, so he can't even like play defense the way he wants to play. Kyrie's just doing what Kyrie does. It's just making tough buckets. And like eventually, like you think like, okay, these have to stop. And they just don't. And you're just like, what is going on? They shot 54.8% today from the field. Minnesota shot 42. And it was just one of them games where it was like, oh, it was either going to be an offensive shootout or you were going to get blown out because that's the kind of rhythm they were on. They made 46 shots and they had 20 assists. So 15 for 34 from three, that's 44% as a team. It's hard to beat that. So, of course, Luka, 36, 10, and 5. Kyrie, 36, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. So Luka had the 10 rebounds. PJ Washington, 12. He had 2 threes. Gafford had 11 points, 9 rebounds. Derek Lively came back, 9 points, 8 rebounds. They just, when it clicks, man, it was very similar, man, this year. When the Clippers clicked, it looked great. Obviously, every time the Warriors click, it looks great. When Boston's making threes and it clicks, it looks great. And it just feels like it's clicking. It's been clicking. And I think that Dallas, it seems to me like this series, Dallas came in, knew that they had something. I don't know what it was, but they knew they had something because to have for 5 games, 2 guys having this success. It's one thing if it's like, okay, Luka's having success, but it's Luka and we're going to stop everybody else. But Luka and Kyrie to have this kind of success for 5 straight games is like, all right. And maybe they didn't have like to the level of this in game 4, but just like 4 out of 5 games, these guys are just cooking you. Like it's almost like Dallas knew, okay, this the way they play defense is the exact way we like to have teams play defense against us. Not what Denver liked. But Denver doesn't have somebody who can dance like Kyrie or somebody who can put you in compromising positions on defense like Luka can. They just don't. Michael Porter Jr. can't put the more he puts the ball on the ground, the less efficient he gets. Jamal Murray is a great player. He's not Luka. Luka's 6'7", and he's not Kyrie. So, I think it's a different, it's just a different sort of matchup. And so it almost feels like Dallas knew this. We're going to be successful. It's just going to come down to making shots, which is typically what it comes down to because the reality of it is they say it all the time. It's a make or miss league, right? If you can make all the right plays. You got to make shots. And there's no defense for perfect offense. When you're making great shots, they're tough. Now you're in your bag, you're flowing. Oh, okay, yeah. They're a step slow now. Like they were in a different kind of rhythm. Part of that was they came out hot and focused. The other part of that was it felt like Minnesota didn't have no real energy. It didn't feel like Game 5, all right, we're back at home. Like, this is what we want. This is what's going to get us back in the series. We need to blow the doors off these dudes. It didn't feel like that. It almost felt like, all right, we're back home. Now let's, just kind of feed off the crowd. Minnesota, so they went 0-3 in the series at home. You lost in 5, and you're the higher seed. But if you go back and think about it, so they're 0-3. They went 0-3 in the series at home. They went 1-2 last series against Denver. Remember, they were up 2-0 and then lost 2 at home against Denver. So that puts them at 1-5. And of course, they won their 2 against Phoenix in round 1. But 1-5 in their last 6 home games, it almost feels like they lack focus when they're at home. When they're on the road, it's like business trip, everybody lock in, everybody focus up. But then they're at home, and it just feels like they expect to win because they're at home. And I don't want to say that's what it was because, of course, I'm not in the locker room, I'm not in their heads, but that's just what it felt like. And it felt today like they just didn't have any real energy. And you're not going to come out and keep yourself from being sent to Cancun with no energy. That's just what it is. So congratulations to Minnesota. I hope and pray that they don't turn into what the Grizzlies turned into, which is a team that now annoys us. And they can build off this. I'm curious what they'll do with Gobert. There's been a lot of talk about him being the defensive player of the year and getting exposed. Again, I personally feel like you can't hold that against him, that he can't guard Luka one-on-one or Kyrie one-on-one. To me, that's not fair, but I digress. I'm curious what they think they're going to do with Cat. I've always thought, yeah, Cat probably needs to go. But, that's just my personal opinion. But like I said, I like how he played today. He played like a guy who knew we are facing elimination. So now you got Mavericks, you got Celtics. Keys for me, I'm not going to get into. We'll get into a preview later on down the week. I'm going to give myself, the finals aren't until June 6th. They don't start until June 6th, so we got time. Obviously, keys for me are, is Kristaps going to play? Where's he at? They've got a whole extra week off, and he hasn't played since round 1. So where's Kristaps at? Derek Lively on the other end for Dallas. He got hit, and it felt like that was super, super, super painful. It just looked painful. And like his reaction, it just looks like, oh man, this could be bad. He ended up staying in the game, played a little bit longer. So we'll see how that is. Luka, we know he had the knee thing going on early. And just like this week off, like it gives us a little bit of a break from basketball to kind of decompress and take in the whole season as we get ready to consume the finals. But, so health is obviously a big thing. It seems like Boston's relatively healthy outside of that, and it seems like so is Dallas. And we've always said that the league is a war of attrition. Minnesota's pretty healthy. Indiana is pretty healthy, right? With the exception, I know Halliburton got hurt. Didn't play the last couple games. The Knicks were not healthy. Philly was not healthy. The Philly was in a bad position. They had to play the Knicks first round due to health because Milwaukee not healthy, Miami not healthy, right? On the other end, you had Phoenix who was just not deep. But Milwaukee was pretty. Oh my God, Minnesota was pretty healthy, and Dallas was pretty healthy. But New Orleans is not healthy, right? No Zion. So war of attrition, and it seems like the two healthiest teams are still here. Both teams have a week off. You got two coaches. You got Jason Kidd, who people, I think he coached the Bucks at one point, and this that there. You got Joe Mazzulla, who just last year they were like, oh, he's maybe a little bit out of his skis. He probably should be running out of town. You had Joe Mazzulla last year. Now all of a sudden he's back in the finals, and the Celtics are playing like they're the best team in basketball. That's just how they've played. I'm curious to see if Kristaps plays, and even not with Al Horford. I'm curious to see how Al Horford matches up against these younger bigs that really want to run the floor and rim run, drop coverage, et cetera, that they like to play. Like all these teams seem to like to play against the pick and roll. But also, on the other end, him stretching the floor, keeping the Derek Lively's because, hey, Derek White and Jaylen Brown go for a 2-3 pick and roll, right? And there's no rim protection, okay? P.J. Washington's going to be huge. It seems like Derek Jones Jr. only makes shots at home. So it'll be interesting. We know that Boston has had their struggles at home. We know that Dallas has played pretty well on the road. But we know that Boston's played very well on the road. So I think later on in the week, I'll do some thinking. I'll look at some of the matchups. I'll check out some of the injuries, and then I'll give a prediction. I think the next time I hit the mic, which will be prior to the finals. But Dallas Mavericks, Boston Celtics, it's been a great season. It's definitely been a great playoffs. I've loved it. I've enjoyed it. And this is what we come down to. Instant reaction. See you guys soon.